Welcome to Skytech-Lens. The news from Beijing hit Seattle like a thunderclap. China, once Boeing's golden goose, abruptly halted all Boeing aircraft deliveries and future purchases of American aviation parts. This was no subtle nudge. It was a full-blown economic blockade, retaliation for President Trump's escalating trade war. Brand new jets sat stranded on the tarmac, gleaming symbols of a geopolitical gamble gone wrong. For years, China's insatiable demand fueled Boeing's growth, supporting tens of thousands of American jobs and billions in revenue. Now, with a single announcement, that entire strategy was in ruins, undone by politics far beyond Boeing's control. The financial shock was immediate. Billions in expected revenue vanished, production lines faced a massive surplus, and the entire aerospace supply chain shuttered. Boeing, already reeling from safety scandals and production woes, now faced an existential threat that would force desperate, controversial choices. With crisis mounting, Boeing's leadership, led by CEO Kelly Ortberg, made a bold, controversial move, shifting a significant portion of production to Mexico. The goal was clear: slash labor costs, streamline operations, and regain competitiveness as the company's finances teetered. Boeing's board argued this was about survival, not abandoning America, but the announcement landed like a bombshell in Washington state. Generations had built their lives around Boeing. Now, the prospect of jobs moving abroad felt like betrayal. The company's shadow factories, costly rework centers for flawed jets, were still draining resources, and production targets remained elusive. Leadership saw Mexico as a way to break the cycle of crisis and inefficiency. For workers and communities, it confirmed their worst fears. Loyalty and hard work were no match for corporate cost-cutting. Boeing was betting everything on a leaner, more globalized future. News of Boeing's Mexico move reached the White House, igniting President Trump's fury. He saw it as a betrayal of American workers and responded with a threat: a 200% tariff on any Boeing aircraft assembled outside the U.S. and sold to American airlines. The message was clear: make the Mexico plan financially impossible. The ultimatum put Boeing in an impossible bind, risking billions in U.S. sales and sending shockwaves through corporate America. Trump's move was political theater, framing himself as the defender of American jobs against a globalist corporation. The rules of business were changing in real time, with the president as the ultimate arbiter. Boeing was forced to justify its actions not just to shareholders, but to the nation. The conflict had become a high-stakes drama about loyalty, economics, and presidential power. The world expected Boeing to back down, but CEO Kelly Ortberg refused. Instead of quiet negotiation, he publicly declared Boeing's strategy would be guided by global competitiveness, not political pressure. Ortberg argued that to survive, Boeing had to make tough decisions, just as Airbus did, free from similar constraints. His defiance electrified the business world. Some saw him as a champion of free market principles, others as reckless. The confrontation became a defining moment, a CEO challenging presidential authority, a clash of worldviews. Ortberg's gamble was that economic realities would outlast political storms. The stage was set for a protracted battle over the future of American industry. The twin shocks of China's blockade and Trump's tariff threat created a perfect storm for Boeing. Dozens of jets sat grounded, representing billions in frozen cash and a severe liquidity crisis. The pain rippled through the supply chain. Engine makers, small suppliers, and entire towns felt the squeeze. Boeing's stock plunged, revenue dropped 14%, and the company's backlog couldn't mask the bleeding. Airbus seized the moment, courting nervous airlines and threatening Boeing's market share. Longtime customers warned they'd switch to Airbus or even China's Comac if tariffs made Boeing planes unaffordable. The fallout wasn't just lost sales, it was a threat to Boeing's future relevance. The crisis exposed how quickly political conflict could cripple even the mightiest industrial giant. With China closed and the U.S. market under threat, CEO Ortberg pivoted to the global south. Boeing redirected stranded white-tail jets to emerging markets in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. These regions, hungry for modern jets, offered a lifeline. Boeing delivered 130 aircraft in early 2025, up from 83 the year before. Revenues climbed 18%, and Ortberg projected a return to positive cash flow by year's end. But the pivot brought new challenges: fierce competition, unfamiliar regulations, and the risk that these sales were only a temporary fix. Building new relationships and support networks from scratch was daunting. The strategy showed Boeing's resilience, but the long-term outcome was far from certain. The company was adapting, but the shadow of lost markets loomed large. Even as Boeing fought political battles, it was haunted by its own failures. The memory of two deadly 737 MAX crashes and a recent mid-flight door blowout eroded public trust and exposed deep flaws in safety culture. Production targets slipped, shadow factories for reworking flawed jets drained resources and morale. A fire at a key supplier nearly halted production, revealing the fragility of Boeing's supply chain. Management was stuck in crisis mode, unable to focus on innovation or long-term strategy. Even Boeing's space and defense arm faltered, with embarrassing setbacks for its Starliner spacecraft. The ghosts of past crises were not just memories, they were ongoing obstacles to recovery. Beneath the headlines, Boeing's turmoil was a human story. In Washington's Puget Sound, generations had built lives around Boeing. Now, fear and betrayal swept through communities. Production slowdowns meant lost overtime, layoffs loomed, and the Mexico move felt like a gut punch. The union's recent strike had already strained trust. Now, workers felt like pawns in a game between executives and politicians. The pain rippled outward. Suppliers, small businesses, and local governments all suffered as Boeing stumbled. The paradox was cruel. Trump's tariffs, meant to protect jobs, threatened to destroy them. Workers faced a future where loyalty was unrewarded and stability was shattered. The cost of this conflict was measured in lost livelihoods and broken trust. Boeing's clash with the Trump administration is a cautionary tale for the modern era. It shows how global business, national politics, and economic nationalism can collide with devastating consequences. Boeing's dependence on China, once a strength, became a critical vulnerability overnight. The crisis forced all multinationals to rethink their exposure to political risk and the need for diversified markets. Ortberg's defiance raised fundamental questions. Is a company's duty to global competitiveness or national loyalty? The unresolved tension between corporate strategy and political agendas is now central for every U.S. multinational. Boeing's choices, moving production, defying a president, pivoting to new markets, were made under immense pressure, with no easy answers. The fallout touched workers, communities, and the entire economy, a stark warning that politics and profit are now inseparable. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel now for more updates.